संस्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोः श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। ओम वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचानूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानंदं कृष्णं वंदे जगद्गुरुं। We just some weeks ago we did the third chapter, completed it. So he finally says that how our everything, superior even to buddhi is the Atman or the self. Mind is the inferior, buddhi is superior to, even superior to the senses are superior, but the senses are the mind, superior to the mind is the buddhi, and the Atman is even superior to the buddhi, that is the final. So he says, knowing that, because what really troubles us ultimately is ignorance. The ignorance that we are the Atman. That we are the Atman, we do not know that there is an ignorance about it. And that ignorance leads to a lot of desires in the mind. And the desires lead to various problems and difficulties in life. So he says, know that Atman, which is the ultimate, which is superior. And knowing that, you kill this great enemy in the form of desires. Jahishatru, Mahabaho, Kamarupam Durasam. It's difficult, it's not easy to kill that. It's difficult to conquer because in our whole life, our struggle is against desires only, is it not? Ultimately, the root of all problems, root of all our struggles, our sufferings, everything is, at the root of all that is desire. That is why Bhagavan Buddha put it very simply. Don't worry about anything else in this life. The moment you are born, there is suffering. What is the reason of suffering? Is desires. And he said there is a way out of the suffering, and the path is Ashtanga Marga, or the Eightfold Path. That was the original Buddha's simple teachings, which have now become, of course, very complicated, very schools and divisions and subdivisions and so on. So, here also he says, conquer that enemy which is in the form of desires. So even, in the mind of Arjuna also, it operates in various forms, The desire operates quite often, if it is very discernible and easily is found out or detected as something which is directly harming us, quite often at least we can fight. Quite often it comes in a very subtle form. We don't even know. Quite often it assumes the form of something very superior. For example, in Arjuna's mind, it took the form as if he want to become a great mendicant. I would give up arms, I would not fight. Why should I kill all that? So, but then behind that also there was the fear, and that fear caused by ignorance. And again the desire that I should be, praised as someone who for the righteous reasons did not fight. Maybe that was the desire lurking in his heart. So he says ultimately, everything is coming out of the desire. At the root of the desire is ignorance. The ignorance of what real nature. So he conquered that great enemy in the form of desire, and then that's how your redemption is possible, Sri Krishna says. Because, suddenly, what is the context in which he brings it, that is very important to understand now. So he says, the mind and the buddhi are said to be, the indriyani mano buddhihi asyadishtanam uchyate eite vimohetyeva jnanamavritya dehinam eite vimohat yesha jnanamavritya dehinam. So the senses, the mind and the buddhi are said to be desired. With these it weighs knowledge and deludes the embodied soul. So the insatiable desire, the kama, that completely, veils the knowledge, and that's how the embodied spirit is brought into this. So, therefore he says, Indriyani adav niyamya bharatashrava papanam pradihyanam jnana vijnana nasham. So again he says, this is one which destroys all. So in the context of Arjuna, what is this Upadesha really? Kyunki he was apparently today, if you look at the context in which this was being said, he had come to fight the war. So he really wanted to fight a righteous war, dharma yuddha. That's why he came. Then suddenly what is this? Why is he trying to give up? Why does he not want to fight? So the various reasons advocated by him are right in front of me are Drona, Bhishma and other great acharyas and others. मैं इन सबको कैसे बध करूं? How do I kill all them? So that was his. So there also, somehow Krishna seems to trace ultimately, the senses and then the mind and the buddhi and then the Atman. Largely we operate at the level of the senses. So he says slowly conquer them, then you will understand the deep lurking desire in your heart, that is what is really troubling you. That is what is because of the result of ajnana. So once you conquer desire, the ajnana will also be destroyed, and then that's why you will get to your ultimate redemption. Then then he come to the next chapter, 4th chapter. It's called Jnana Karma Sannyasa. What is the renunciation of action in knowledge? How do you give up action even while, in that state of knowledge finally? So he begins with this, Evam Paramparam Praptam Imam Rajarshayo Viduhu Sakale Neha Manata Yogo Nashta Parantava. This great yoga, Parampara Praptam Imam Rajarshayo Viduhu. Great Rajarshis, they only were the custodians, they knew this, the great royal sages. But Sakale Nehamata Yogo Nashta, because of the lapse of time, it has been lost to the world. This yoga handed down, the yoga of karma, how to work, because slowly over a period of time, the idea came that it is not good to really work. See, slowly, the idea of jnana took such a shape, धीरे धीरे ऐसे एक शिष्ट हुआ, आप सब कर्म की छोड़ के संपूर्ण रूप से कहाँ गुहा में जाके ऐसे कोई ध्यान में रहना है, ऐसे कोई विचार करना है ताकि आपका कोई कर्म नहीं करना है. So that was the idea. But now here Sri Krishna clearly says that you must fight, take up the arms, fight, kill. That is what you are supposed to do. That is your sadharma. That itself will lead you to the highest realization, highest goal. Not wanting to fight is also a desire, is it not? Arjuna had the desire that I will not fight. See, just as you have a desire to achieve something, have something, attain something, acquire something, not having something, giving up something is also a desire. So, उनका वैसी इच्छा, ऐसी कोई काम, ऐसी कामना वासना था that I will not fight. So he gave up that desire, he says, because your very nature will make you fight, your tendency will make you fight. आपकी स्वभाव से वही करना चाहे, उसी से आपका जो मिलना मिले. So now he says, so this is something quite different from the general prevalent idea that the work is to be abandoned. कर्म और ज्ञान का कोई ही समझौता हो नहीं सकता. Work and jnana cannot go together, and unless you give up work, there will not be any jnana. Why? Because there is a basic inherent difficulty in understanding, because what does work mean? Karma means duality. Because there is unless there are two entities, there cannot be any action. No performance of action is possible unless there is duality. So karma itself implies duality, whereas jnana implies ultimate oneness or complete unitary state of consciousness. So ये दोनों परस्पर विरोध है. So obviously wherever there is karma, there cannot be jnana. So slowly, the teachers of jnana took it to such a state that if you want to attain jnana, you have to completely give up karma. But there in the previous chapter, he said, you give up this idea, give up the desire of not fighting. You engage in fight, kill your enemies, because that is what you should do. So naturally, this appears to be a new idea, a new philosophy, where of course slowly, Sri Krishna will also take this idea how through work itself we will reach a state where you are absolutely in a state of worklessness. What does happen even at the state of highest awareness or the highest state of knowledge? Does one stop completely physical action? Does one not eat or sleep or do anything? All that might happen. Only thing is, the work itself takes a different shape. If the karta, if I do work with the idea, I am not the doer. See and also what is the problem in this work itself? It brings results. It brings फल हो जाता है. कर्म से फल जन्म होता है. So कर्म फल से आप फिर you have to get entangled in there. उससे आपकी भोगना पड़ेगा. So that is why they avoid all that, completely give up work. So there is no sense. But then that is not possible, because Sri Krishna himself said somewhere else, Karmendriyani samyama yaste manasaspun indriyartan vimudatma mityachara. You pretend to be, you are not acting, but mentally you are extremely active and you are functioning all the time. What is that kind of inaction? It's only physically आपका हाथ पैर आपका बंधा है, लेकिन आप मन ही मन बहुत सारा करते रहते हैं. So that is karma. So even sitting and meditating, that is also karma. Thinking and doing vichara that this is not Brahman, this is not Brahman, the neti vichara, that is also karma, manasik karma. So no one can be really free from work in that sense. So is it possible to give a different drift to work itself? That is what Sri Krishna teaches here, and that is what Swamiji took it from Gita and developed it to perfection, where he said that आप संपूर्ण रूप से निस्वार्थ हो के आप कर्म करें, वही कर्म से आपका कोई बंधन जन्म नहीं लेगा. So ultimately, as long as you have a body, आपका जब तक शरीर है, किसी ना किसी वक्त आप कर्म में engage है. In fact, even that's why there are elaborate discussions even in Kathopanishad etc. about what is the condition of a जीवन मुक्ता. मानिए जी एक आदमी का यही रह के ज्ञान प्राप्त हो गया, वो मुक्त हो गई, उस समय वो क्या करता है? Whether that person immediately does his body drop off, और अगले क्षण से वो क्या करते? So it's a very beautiful. There also he says, आपका कुछ ऐसा सामान्य वृत्ति नहीं रखने में वही शरीर में कोई कर्म संभव नहीं है. So इसलिए स्वामी जी has clearly bypassed all these elaborate technical discussions, very clearly says, आपका ऐसे मन का आपका स्थिति है, आप यही अवस्था में ज्ञान की बात करने में कुछ नहीं होगा. In your mind is full of restlessness, full of desires, full of action to participate. What is the point you are saying that I will not do anything? सुनने में अच्छा लगता है, ध्यान में बैठना, समाधि में हो जाना, it's all looking very attractive. But is it possible? Are you capable of that? अभी आपका मन का जो स्थिति है उसमें आपका बहुत ही करना ही अच्छा है. कैसे करेंगे? There ही तरीका बता रहे हैं. आप ऐसा करने में, then there are so many ways in which he has discussed how this karma is possible. You have gone through that also several times again and again. So if you do it in a particular way where there is no sense of, see कर्म में दो चीज़ बहुत ही बंधन जहाँ से जन्म लेता है. I am the कर्ता, I am the भोक्ता, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. आप ऐसा कर्म करें, मैं करता नहीं हूँ, मैं भोगता नहीं हूँ. I am not the doer, I am not the enjoyer. With the idea completely you are free from these two ideas, then there will be any bondage. ऐसा आप कर्म पहले नहीं होगा, because when you start, there is full of ideas. I will do it. It's why my good or my result. I want it to happen this way. ये सब आपका सोच रहेगा. लेकिन आप धीरे धीरे उसके साथ आप विचार भी करते रहें. धीरे धीरे you can reach such a state where you will be able to perform with great intensity. At the same time, there is no idea that I am the doer. So if you also, that's why he also says karmanyavadhikarasya na. So completely give up the idea of aspiring for the fruits of action. आप भोग करने की इच्छा और मैं करता हूँ, ये दो भाव आप छोड़ दें. If you give up complete the idea that I am the doer and I am the enjoyer, and such a karma will not lead to any bondage, rather it will lead to chitta. What is chitta shuddhi? Chitta is full of restlessness of so many desires. मैं ये करना चाहता हूँ, ये मेरा मिलना चाहिए, ये भोग करना चाहता हूँ. All that are completely occupying our mind. In such a mind, if you bring the idea, no, मैं निस्वार्थ भाव से काम करूँगा, मेरा कोई कामना से मैं नहीं करूँगा. If you consistently try to keep this idea and perform extensively, what happens? The mind starts slowly getting purified. मन के अंदर जो चंचलता जितना भी रहा, सब धीरे 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 शांत हो जाएगा, प्रशमित हो जाएगा. ऐसा मन में धीरे धीरे कोई वासना नहीं रही. So when the mind is free from vasanas, such a mind slowly comes to a state of complete calmness or complete peace, and at such a point of time, the karma will by itself drop off. वही स्थिति में आपसे कर्म वैसे ही छूट जाए. It will not be there, it will go by itself. You don't have to voluntarily or forcefully give up karma. Karma will get dropped off by itself when you reach such a state of evolution where there is absolutely no sense of enjoyment, no sense of doership in the mind. So that is why, Sri Krishna also slowly is only trying to give that idea also, but that was brought to perfection by Swamiji. So he says, this iram parampara praptam, parampara se jo milne wala, handed off from teacher to disciple succession, this was known to Rajarshis, royal sages, but owing to lapse of time, it was lost to the world. So among the Rajarshis, why it is Rajarshis? Because pure rishis कुछ नहीं करते थे. Rishis would only meditate. उन लोगों का कर्म के साथ कोई लेना देना नहीं है, तो वन जंगल में चले जाते थे. But Rajarshis were those in the, that's why Rajarshis were considered even greater jnanis in the sense. They were in the kingdom, they were managing everything, but yet they could reach such a high state of evolution. The greatest example is always given is the idea of King Janaka. He was considered. So he had gone probably to Ashtavakra Muni or some such in उसकी class में वो सुनने के लिए गए थे. And he was sitting along with the other brahmacharis. So there she was teaching some great scriptures, everybody was listening attentively. Thoda, drops of rain appeared, and the brahmacharis immediately ran to take out their loin cloth they had put for drying, and they came back and sat in the class. At the same time, someone from the Raj Darbar and gave something and told something in the ears of King Janaka. He simply waved him off and he continued the class. So at the end of the class, the Muni asked, see, you are brahmacharis, you are supposed to give up everything, and you are listening to shastras, and so few drops of rain fell down. आप छूट गए क्या? आपका कॉपिन गिर रहा है करके उसका to protect it, you ran away to take that. But do you know who came from Raj Darbar? Somebody came to tell him that whole Mithila is, there's a huge fire is blazing. And Janaka did not even pay any attention, he simply waved him off. That is the difference, we are so detached. That is a famous sloka, Mithila is Namedahyati Kinchana. Whole Mithila is burning, but nothing is touched. Because he knows. So, मैं वहाँ जाके क्या करूँ? तो सबको व्यवस्था है दरबार में, राजधानी में जो करना है सब अपना में कर्मचारी सो आग निभाएंगे, कुछ करेंगे, पानी डाल सब करेंगे ना. मेरा ऐसे दौड़ दौड़ के जाना कुछ नहीं, जब जाके भी खबर ले सकता हूँ. So here that, so he was whole, that's why Rajarishis were considered great sages. They are in the kingdom, they are participating, but because they were participating, so they had perfected this science of Karma Yoga, this knowledge of Karma Yoga. They were so great. That's why he says, this was Imam Rajarshayo, which was known to Rajarishis, but owing to the lapse of time, Sakale Nehamata, Yogo Nashta Parantava. This is, it has been lost due to the time, and I have come to revive it. And Krishna was also, in a sense, Rajarshi. He was the king of Mathura. Yet he was the highest jnani, and he taught this Advaita knowledge to Sri Arjuna, his disciple, and others. And then he says, Saevayam, no, then first look he says, Imam Vivaspati Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manurikshva Kave Braveed. So what's in? I imparted this immortal yoga to Vivasvan. Imam Vivaspati Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam. This immortal yoga, Abhyaya yoga to Vivasvan. Vivasvan Manave Praha. Vivasvan taught it to Manu. Manu Ikshvaku Abraveed. This it was taught to Ikshvaku by Manu. That's how it has come down with the parampara. Then it got destroyed. He says, then Saevayam Mayate Adhya Yoga Prokta Puratana Bhaktosi me Sakhacha iti Rahasyam hi etat uttamam. So you are my Sakha and also a devotee. You are not only, so you are so dear to me because you are my friend and a devotee. You are neither just only a friend nor both, you are combined. So, aisa soch ke, because of that, I have told you, Maya Adhya Yoga Prokta Purata is ancient yoga. I have taught you for it's a noble secret. Rahasyam hi etat uttamam is a wonderful secret by a teacher only to a worthy disciple. सबको नहीं बता रहे, क्योंकि आप ऐसे ऐसे बड़ी बड़ी बात if you teach somebody who does not even understand, it's no point. So he is taught only to the discerning disciples by the great gurus. But since you are my great friend and devotee, I am imparting this great scriptures to you. Then Arjuna is asking, Aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivaspata, katam etat pijaniyam, tvamado proktavaniti. Because आपका अपरम भवतो जन्म, आपका जन्म तो बाद में हुआ. How could you teach someone who was born before you? मैं जैसे उन्होंने historically जो देखते हैं ऐसा वो उनका समझ में आया. Because विवस्वान तो आपके पहले यहाँ बोला ना, अहम इवम विवस्वति योगम प्रोक्तवान अहम अवयम. So I taught to yoga to Vivasvan. But he says, Vivasvan का जन्म आपका पहले हुआ, आपका जन्म तो बाद में हुआ. You are born later. How do I understand that you taught this to Vivasvan? Katam etat vijaniyam tvamadu proktavaniti. To someone who was born before you, how did you teach him? Then he says, Bhagavan uvacha, Bahuni me vetitani janmani tavad arjuna tanyaham veda sarvani nattam vita parantapa. You see, you and I have gone through many births. Bahuni me vetitani janmani tavad arjuna. Both of us have gone through several births. Tani aham veda sarvani nattam vita parantapa. I know all that, but you do not remember. Because that's why the difference between the ordinary mortal that is born and a great sage. That is the mystery of divine incarnation. He says, see, everything is coming. Normally there's a process through Prakriti only, everything takes place. But in the case of the Bhagavan, his birth is of a totally different nature. Of course, the next year together, if you take it, we can understand even better. Ajopi san avyatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritin swam adhishtaya sambhavami atma mayaya. Ajopi san avyatma. See, I am birthless and deathless. Bhutanam ishvaropi san, the Lord of all beings. But yet, Prakritim Swam Adhishtaya, taking the pure by material nature, Adhishtaya, Sambhavami Atma Mayaya, by my own inherent mysterious power. Because normally for a birth to take place. How do we account for the repeated human births? ऐसे ही जन्म का कैसे हम लोग व्याख्या करते हैं? Because of samskaras, पूर्व जन्म की वजह से जो किया उसकी वजह से. So all our births we trace to the previous birth, samskaras. That is the reason for births. But then in the case of the Lord, who has no, ऐसे कोई उनका संस्कार ही नहीं है, कुछ ऐसा किया ही नहीं है, जिसकी वजह से how such a power, such a person can take part, because he was always perfect. So supremely perfect being of infinite nature, how such a person can be born? Because he has no previous janam samskaras, ऐसा कुछ किया ही नहीं है. How it is possible? Yes, it's possible because that's what this is a very mysterious power of the Lord called Maya. Sambhavami Atma Maya. Because the mysterious power of Maya, the taking the help of Prakriti, the Lord comes down on earth. Of course, in the subsequent slokas, he will also explain why it is necessary, why such a thing happens and all that. Because Sri Ramakrishna, of course, explains it beautifully in his own way. Suppose there is the waters of a huge ocean, and now and then some places, because of the coolness, they form as ice. The coolness is the devotion of the devotees. In response to their prayers and appeal, the huge waters, the oneness of the consciousness of the Atman, that condenses and takes the shape of just like the ice, takes the shape of an incarnation of God, and he comes down on earth. So, actually this birth, death, God, how the world functions, what is Prakriti, so there is a sense of mystery, or there is a sense of some kind that defies our normal sense understanding we always experience. How does it all happen? How such a huge entity called world, planet, how this is happening? How does the sun rise every day, particularly in the eastern horizon at a particular time? How the cycle changes? All that you may say some science and this and that. This orderliness, even in your small little kingdom, in your personal life, in your little room, or in your family, in your house, we are not able to establish any order. But the whole world is functioning. Supposing एक दिन तो सूरज से भगवान से छुट्टी ले लिया तो खत्म, सारा जिंदगी खत्म हो जाएगा. So how is it happening? So all that's what they say. There's a power called Prakriti. This Prakriti is also called as Maya. And because of that, and this again, it's all coming from that supreme infinite, or the Bhagwan, or the highest reality. And from that, all these things happen. And this is, that's why he says, how does it happen? Takes the help of his own Maya. Sambhavami Atma Maya. Because his own Maya, the powers of Maya, taking the help of Prakriti, it takes the form and takes birth again and again as various circles at various times, and then that leads to various incarnations, and it has a purpose, and it fulfills certain requirements of the earth at that time. Then the next sloka clearly starts with that. Yada hida hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Whenever there is decline of dharma, see the whole world, the cycle, the various yugas, Dwapara Yuga, then Treta Yuga, Kali Yuga, so many yugas, each yuga running to maybe several thousand years, it all, it goes on in cycles. So this in this each yuga, then there is a huge set of thousands and thousands of people, millions are born, they go through their life cycle, they die, they again are born, goes on and on and on. All that keep on happening according to certain laws, certain these things. But then, the human, the goal of human life according to Hindu Shastras is, the four Purusharthas, and ultimately reach the highest goal of life, namely Mukti. But then slowly over a period of time, this Vismriti, because of forgetfulness, the human beings, they give up their real nature and they indulge in more and more enjoyment or bhoga, etc. Then slowly, the whole life, if it is based on dharma, that is how it is supposed to be, dharma, artha, kama, but they give up the ways of dharma, take to the ways of adharma. That's why the adharma starts growing in this world, dharma starts going down. Then to restore the balance, यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत, O son of Bharata, whenever there is a decline of dharma, and dharma glani, the decline of dharma, abhyutanam adharmasya, the increase of adharma, tadatmanam srijamyaham, I manifest myself in a body. Because ultimately the cycle of the world, of the yugas, that has to be maintained. So when the balance is lost, when there is more and more is adharma and the dharma is going down, then Bhagavan incarnates in a body. So it's all, you can understand all this in various ways, as play of Prakriti. At the individual level, there is one set of samskaras. At the cosmic level, there is some other law that is operating. Ultimately, this play of this creation, destruction, srishti, shriti, and all that, they keep on happening, yuga after yuga. So how does it happen? How does it end? How the dharma is restored? How adharma is brought down? It's beyond the powers of human being, because adharma forces are very, very powerful. Then the power called Bhagavan, he takes a human body, comes down, and then next he says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya shambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam, to protect the sadhus, the good people, the noble people, vinashaya cha dushkritam, to destroy the wicked, dharma samsthapanarthaya, to establish the dharma. Sambhavami, I am born again and again in age to age. That's why, so in one age you might think that I came after Vivaswan, but that is not my only appearance. In some other age I had come earlier. So at that time I had taught, don't think that it's only in this you are seeing you said you have come much later. No, I have gone through several births. Whenever there was a decline of adharma, I had always appeared in a human body to restore balance. But all that I know, but you don't remember, because as a human being with a limited mind, limited intellect, limited capacity, supposing we remember everything, we can't live even a single day, because we have the power of this forgetfulness, we are surviving. Supposing we have completely, from day one of our birth, if you can remember everything, nobody will live more than 15, 16 years, because the memories will be so terrible, you will die, because we are able to forget, all sorrow, sufferings, death, everything. How people weep and weep and weep and weep, and then after 1 year, sometimes they are again back on their feet. Because that forgetfulness only, life goes on. But in the case of the Lord, who is a controller of the universe, who comes to restore balance and all that, he cannot afford to forget. See, I remember everything. I have come again and again several times, because whenever there was a decline of dharma, I have always appeared. So the very purpose of our coming of the incarnation is restoration of balance, and to destroy the wicked and to support the good people. Of course, in the various scriptures, in the Bhagavata Purana, it seems they also add one more dimension to the coming of the Lord. They say it's not only just the destruction of the wicked or the protection of the good. When they go away, they leave such a wonderful adorable form for humanity to worship, humanity to follow a way of life. उनके ऐसे ही बहुत ही आराध्य देवता के रूप में कुछ छोड़ के जाते हैं, उसके साथ जीने के बहुत सुंदर कुछ तरीका भी सिखाते हैं. जो the avatar leaves behind a wonderful way of life and a wonderful adorable way of worship. That is why the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, etc., the Ramchandra and Sri Krishna, not only they destroyed the demons and restored balance, they also left behind wonderful, life lessons. Ramayana, Mahabharata से इतना शिक्षा मिलती है हम लोग का. You learn so much as to how to live, how to behave, how to conquer various circumstances, how to take decisions under various circumstances. Everything is available through that. And not only that, then of course the millions and millions of people are worshipping Rama and Krishna. Not only in this country, in other worlds also. So it's not only restoration of balance, they also leave behind a wonderful way of life, way of approach to the ultimate, and also leave behind extraordinarily adorable forms for worship. So ये भी करते हैं, and and also in avatara, it's not always necessary that they have to take up weapons to destroy. that their very way of life, they can give so much of inspiration to people to follow a life of righteousness, a life dedicated to truth, honesty, morality, and so on. Not every incarnation is supposed to do that only. In fact, some of the other people might say, maybe like, in Christianity, it's not just killing. The Lord took on the sins of everybody and atoned, by which people got redemption. Of course, it's only a faith. There's nothing to substantiate other than the faith of Orthodox Christians. In the same way, you can say even people like Sisipala, Kamsa, and others, Ravana, they were all killed, but they were redeemed because they were killed by the very Lord Himself. Because he fought not with ordinary people, he fought with God Himself. So obviously, he courted death. He knew Ravana was such a great tapasvi. Thousands of years of tapasya he did. That is why, Lord Shiva appeared before and gave him so many boons. Such a tapasvi, does he not know that Ramchandra was the incarnation of God? He knew. But deliberately, that's why, in the Bhakti schools also, there are so many forms of sadhana. One sadhana is to worship the Lord as enemy. शत्रु रूप से साधना करना, वो भी एक भाव है. जैसे हम लोग बहुत ही पसंद करके एक अच्छी रूप से साधन करते हैं ना, भगवान का कोई संतान के रूप में, माँ के रूप में, पिता के रूप में, शांत दास से वात्सल्य सख्य मुझे, ये सब भाव है. इसके अलावा कि शत्रु भाव से साधना करना, वो भी एक तरीका है. So they did that and they were redeemed because they were killed by the very Lord Himself. So, the concept of incarnation and how it works, because, that is why in our Hindu philosophy, there are various schemes and various systems of philosophy, depending upon various minds. आपका मन ऐसे कोई कोमल है, your mind is soft, it's emotional, you want to support. So, वो भी क्या है, जैसे ही Ramakrishna used to say, one might say that no, after all, ultimately there is one truth, there is only one consciousness. What is this God and this and that? Why we should, superimpose such great qualities and worship such a personality? Again, that's also only a way only. Why? Sri Ramakrishna used to say, supposing one thorn pricks your foot, you take out another sharp instrument, take out that thorn and throw away both. साधारण रूप से our minds are so restless, इतना चंचल मन है, कहाँ उसका निवेश करना, एक जगह पे उसकी फोकस करना, एकाग्र करना, next to impossible है. So, instead of thinking, think of the infinite, how do you think of the infinite? There's nothing to think about the infinite. So, all the human mind generally, the minds are used to gross ways of thinking, because all our experiences are through the senses, because of a gross way of thinking, gross way of living. So, in such a mind, if you, instead of thinking of the infinite, you can think of something which is adorable, something which is lovable, whom you think that you can pour your emotions, you can do everything you want with such a personality, and then through that, slowly, ultimately, even at one stage, that also can be given up, just as you use one thorn to take out another thorn. Instead of allowing the restless mind to wander here and there, you give a very beautiful, adorable object of worship to that mind called Ishta Devata, and pour all your emotions, your bhakti, your devotion, instead of wasting your time here and there. You do flowers, you do sandal pasting, and then you do puja, you do offering, you want to eat something, offer it to God, take it as prasada. So all your desires, emotions, everything can be given a direction to the form, to your Ishta Devata. At one point of time, slowly as you go advance in that path itself, ultimately you can give up that also, and even completely take to non-dual form of worship, or the ultimate idea of Advaita also is possible. So, in our Hindu scheme of things, for various types of minds, depending upon their capacity to worship, to learn, to participate, they give various ideas. So the idea of incarnation, the idea of Nishta Devata, the idea of worship, the idea of Bhagavan, the idea of a dualistic form of practices, they are all in the scheme of things. No one loses at the idea of ultimate. Not that the great Hindu rishis and munis were not aware of the ultimate idea of consciousness or oneness and all. They knew. But then there are various minds. There are even still more restless minds. For them, You do even external work, not even the limited idea of service to God. Serve the living beings. That's why Swamiji and Sri Ramakrishna said, Shiv Gyan se Jeev Seva. Serve the God in man which you see right in front of you. You don't have to imagine a God which is not existing. You have to make an image. Imagine worship. No. Worship the God who is in front of you. Think of him as the veritable manifestation of Narayana or Shiva or whatever it is. Do your worship. So ultimately, what is the idea? Ultimately, the idea is unselfishness. Why unselfishness? That is what would take you away from the idea that you are the body, you are the mind. Ultimately, what is that is binding us? What is that preventing us from getting the highest knowledge that we are the Atman or the consciousness? The idea that I am the body, I am the mind. This limitedness, this smallness, this our constricted vision of ourselves or imagination of ourselves, that we are this limited body and mind, that has to be got over only by expanding oneself. When you put your body and mind to such tests in your service to others, it expands, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you can impose, you can bring in the idea of God, Ishtadevata, etc. Or you can also go straight away to the form of worship of Advaita or the idea of non-dual philosophy also. It's possible. But then one has to start from where one is. Being completely embedded in the idea of body and mind, you cannot say that, oh, I am that supreme Atman. That will not work. So you have to begin where you are. That is why our Hindu philosophy beautifully gives us various forms of practices which suit the different minds and then ultimately take you step by step to the ultimate goal. So ultimate goal or ultimate final thing is not lost off. It is remembered by everybody. Only thing is, it has to be in such a form so that it is it's something which is workable. मैं जहाँ हूँ मेरा लायक ऐसा कुछ करना चाहिए. That is how the whole idea of spiritual evolution is constructed in the Hindu way of life. You can take it forward next time. It's a very idea of incarnation is first time Sri Krishna is directly talking about in this chapter. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ram Krishna Arpanam.